Hey everyone, you guys made it just in the nick of crime. Hope y'all are having a good day. So here's what I'm going to try to commit to you guys because I have not been going live lately, whether it's been on YouTube or on TikTok, which is right over here. My TikTok fams over here. By the way, please TikTok, tap that screen. Let's get that to 10,000. Really, ever since the whole, I guess, shutdown where it all went away, I just kind of like lost the motive or the will or the want to go live. So I've kind of been doing it a lot less. But what I'm going to try to do is try to commit at least 3 YouTube videos a week and maybe as much as I can 4 to 5 times a week for TikTok to go live. And at some point, I will try to make it a consistent schedule, but I cannot promise that at this moment in time. Now, with all that said, please do me a couple solids here. First, make sure, like I said, hit that follow button here on TikTok, tap that screen. And if you are new on YouTube or you want to jump over to YouTube, feel free to do that, of course, as well. And yeah, we're going to get to it here in a second. Now, of course, you know that we have some housekeeping items that I have to do, right? And really, it's a very simple housekeeping item. I'll put this up on the stage here on our YouTube. I am trying to get rid of all of these books that I have left. Boundaries, you can get them in the TikTok shop or through justthenickofcrime.com. I am waiting to reorder the other 2 titles until after we figure out what the heck is going on with TikTok, because at this moment, I don't know if we're going to have TikTok in June when the next deadline is, because with everything going on with China, they don't want to deal with us. So they might go away. And I don't want to be stuck with a bunch of inventory. But I am, because of that, not wanting to be stuck with a bunch of these inventory as well. I've got them marked down to literally my cost. So it's break even. And you can order them through TikTok shop or you can order through justthenickofcrime.com. And I will sign them. You can request a specific dedication and they will get mailed out to you from here. Now, all that being said, let me kind of just jump right into that was it. That's what I had. Is my housekeeping items. Am I telling you guys I'm going to try to go live more? All right, but let's talk about what we got to do. So there was a story we're going to talk about here at the very top of this show that is tragic. I have been following it since it happened yesterday. I have a friend of mine who is physically in that area, which is why she is not covering it. If you are on TikTok, you probably know her, Abby Blabby. Give her a follow as well if you don't. But she is physically in the area. This is her community. She works at the hospital that these kids are going to, and some of her friends are the ones who responded to it. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, let me just kind of enlighten you. So yesterday, at about 3:20 in the afternoon, yesterday, which is April 20th or April 28th for anybody who's watching, in Chatham, Illinois, which is just south of Springfield, a Jeep SUV, which was driven by a woman named Marianne Akers, 44 years old. She is a mom of 2, veered off the road, traversed the field, crashed into the side of the east side of the building, striking 3 people outside of the building, went all the way through it to the west side, striking 1 person inside or killing 1 person inside. So 3 people were killed outside. 1 person was killed inside. All of them pretty much children. The oldest victim was 18 years old. Her name was Riley Britton. Let me get you her picture showed up here. So if you guys are on TikTok, you won't be able to see her picture, but if you are on YouTube, you will be able to see her picture. So this is 18-year-old Riley Britton. She was trying to protect the kids, I guess, that's what the article said. And she lost her life doing it. Now there's another kid who's not pictured, Catherine Corley. She's 7 years old. I don't have her photo yet, so that's the only reason it's not there. This is another one of the children. This is 8-year-old Ansley Johnson, who lost her life. And this little girl right here on the side, that is 7-year-old Alma, I think it's pronounced Bernerkemp, 7 years old. All of these children perished in this accident. All 4 of them were pronounced dead at the scene due to multiple blunt force injuries. Now, there are 6 additional people who were injured. We have learned that the 6 people who were injured are all children. 5 of them were transported by ambulance, while 1 had to be taken via life flight. And as far as latest reports go, 1 of those kids remains in critical condition. Now, let's talk about what we know about the driver, right? So Marianne Akers, who was the driver, she was uninjured. She was transported to a local hospital for evaluation. Authorities have stated that she is not currently in custody, and the investigation is still ongoing. Now, here's where it gets interesting. So when we first started covering this yesterday, people who were on the ground, they kept her handcuffed in that area for about an hour and a half, somewhere in that area. They did a field sobriety test on her. She failed it. She blew a .00, so no alcohol according to the breathalyzer test. Everyone was saying that initially she was probably drunk or under the influence, but apparently that was not the case, at least at this point, although toxicology is still pending. So they are believing that she was having maybe a medical emergency, something possibly like a seizure, which could have contributed to the crash. However, what I find odd about that is if it's a medical situation, then why are you keeping her handcuffed for over an hour before you get her medical treatment? So we're still waiting to hear from that. She's not in custody. So things have changed since yesterday, and I'm gonna circle back to that in a second. Now, obviously, the community in Springfield, Illinois, and Chatham community, it is absolutely devastated. They are mourning the lives of these kids. Um, Flowers, toys, candles have all been placed outside the Why Not After School camp. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker has sent his condolences, expressed him saying that our community lost a group of bright and innocent young people with their whole lives ahead of them. My heart is heavy for these families and the unimaginable grief that they are expecting. Now, real quick, let me tell you about the daycare. It is very respected in the community. It's called Why Not, which stands for Youth Needing Other Things. It was established in 2002, and it was designed to provide a safe and stimulating environment for children during after-school hours and summer programs. Um, they focus on things like various activities, of course, but also fostering friendships with students from different schools. Now, this is an absolutely tragic event. It has left an indelible mark on the Chatham, Illinois community. Investigations are continuing. The story is not over. And the focus is going to remain, though, on supporting the victims' families and ensuring such a tragedy does not occur again. So my thoughts and prayers are with those affected. I know that that doesn't really mean much, but look, I have a 5-year-old kid. All right, she's about to be 6. When these things happen, it's very hard for me as a parent to report on these types of stories. They truly break my heart. They truly upset me. And you know what? I guess maybe instead of saying, my thoughts and prayers are with them, I should just say, you know what? It just effing sucks. It sucks that this happened, and it was senseless. But nevertheless, the story is still developing. So if you are watching this, I would encourage you to honor these individuals by saying their names, sharing their story, sharing their photos, which you can go steal, take them. I don't care. I don't need credit. I don't want credit. You can take them from my Instagram. They are already up there. But pushing for full transparency about what happened because we owe them that much. Now, real quick, here's what I want to talk about before I get into the next story that we're going to talk about, which is the fluidity of these types of stories. I didn't mean to do that, guys. Sorry. There we go. When a story happens, a breaking story that's big, something like this, something like a mass shooting event, something like a plane crash, right? One of these events that are having frequent updates. All right. And I feel like I have to explain this every time something happens. So I'm just putting this out there so you guys kind of know what happened. All right. Um, Basically, when these stories happen and information is moving very quickly, not all of the information is the most accurate at the time, and things sometimes change. Sometimes casualties change, sometimes injuries change, sometimes reports of people who have passed away change. Sometimes the situation that's going on with the perpetrator changes. It all comes out. But what every news organization, myself included, tries to do in these situations is try to get you guys the information as fast as you can, as reliably as we can. And when that information changes, it doesn't mean that the videos or the information that was put out there was wrong. It just means that it was the best information that was had at that time. And we update with new information as we get it. So as of right now, this is the new information that we have. Um, I know that in the last video I did with the update, people were like, you got this wrong. I hope you get sued. Well, that's not how this works. We say allegedly, we say things like, according to people in the community, and I don't say names. Like I didn't say this woman's name till it was confirmed. I heard this woman's name from the same people in the community, but I didn't want to say it until it was confirmed because God forbid this would be just a horrific thing. Put somebody's name out there incorrectly who didn't do a horrific act that they're being, you know what I'm saying, that they're being accused of. So you have to be very careful about that. So that's kind of what I wanted to say about that because that tends to be a challenge every time we have a story like this. I'm not trying to give anybody wrong information. I'm trying to give you guys information the best that I can as fast as I can. All right. So now let's talk about Angie Solomon. All right. Now, for those of you who might not know the Angie Solomon story, let me just kind of bring you up to speed. Now, I have a couple of podcast episodes when I did my old podcast, which is since I don't do 50 Words for Murder anymore. That's what it's called. But you can go to the playlist here on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Um, and you can listen to the stories where I interviewed Angie and I interviewed Gracie separately about their incidents that happened to them, from their own words, from their stories with their father father and ex-husband. And what I can tell you if you don't know this story is basically Angie Solomon is the mother of two children, Grant and Gracie. Grant was killed when his truck ran over him in Gallatin, Tennessee, which is about 40 minutes from their home, back in 2020 during what was supposed to be a baseball thing. His father, Aaron, was the only one with him. And I'm going to tell you, the death is very, very sus. It is. You look at the paperwork, you look at the limited investigation, you look that nobody looked at the vehicle with everything that was being said and reported. It is a very weird, very strange death, and things just don't add up. That is the bottom line to that. Okay. Um, he was in a 5-year-old Toyota Tacoma at the time. Supposedly, this car just put itself in reverse or just went out of park and ran over him, rolled over this kid. Okay. When you look at photos of the scene, which I've seen the photos, I'm going to try to dig them and find them and maybe post them back up online. When you look at photos of these scenes, though, the vehicle is in park. It is fully in park. It has not been touched. It has not been altered by anybody in the vehicle. The truck was where it stopped. They took the photos. They did all the investigations. The truck was in park. All right. And basically, what Angie had said is that she believed that Aaron had driven the truck over him, did all this, and then got out and made it look like an accident. That was her version of events. Now, the truck was never investigated, and Toyotas are pretty reliable. I'm not saying that mistakes don't happen. I'm not saying that vehicles can't like fall out of reverse or things like that don't happen, never happen. But Toyota has a pretty good reputation, and you would think if that was an event that happened with this Toyota Tacoma, you would have done an investigation enough to let Toyota know, hey, we had this issue with your transmission, right? We had an issue with this transmission. And they would possibly check into it, do a recall, or there would be a lawsuit against Toyota, and none of that stuff happened. So what I'm saying is that his death is strange, and things just don't add up on it. All right. And that's one of the reasons I started covering it. Then you have Gracie, who at the time was 15, 16 years old, and she was alleging severe SA by her father starting at the age of 2. You can go to YouTube, and when she was 12 years old, she posted a video, I think it's like an 18-minute long video, talking about the things her father did to her, reading a letter. And per Angie, what Angie told me back then when we did it was the reason that Gracie did that was because she felt in fear of her life, and she felt that she wanted to make sure that this information was out there should something happen to her. All right. Now, Aaron Solomon this is all happening in the Nashville area, which is where I live. Okay. So Aaron Solomon was a TV news anchor, radio personality. And according to Angie Solomon, he has a lot of connections with politicians and religious leaders and things like that, which is why none of this stuff ever got investigated. And there is so much more to this. I believe truly that this case is going to become very, very big and layered. The best one that I can compare it to is basically Murdoch, Alec Murdoch, because it is such a strange story. There are so many layers. There's so much to peel back. That I can't even begin. You know, we could do an episode entirely dedicated to this, and maybe we need to do that. Entirely dedicated to this with all the information where we just talk about everything. If that's something that you guys are interested in, especially on YouTube, because we would do this on YouTube, make sure to drop your comments there. And let me know if you guys want me to go ahead and do like a full breakdown of all of this, which would be probably a fairly long episode, but it would get you completely caught up. And we could also do, because she went to court today, I'm going to give you an update on that here in a moment. But she went to court today regarding the bond hearing, and they played the audio of her conversation with the alleged hitman, all right, who was really an undercover cop. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. I was going to play it actually on YouTube today, but it was so long. Angie was so long-winded with it that I'm like, okay, I can't put it on today. We need to just make a separate episode for this. All right. But here's what I can tell you. So basically what happened was Angie was arrested for talking to a hitman offering him money to take out Aaron Solomon, her ex-husband. And there's some interesting things that were said in the phone call, which I will talk to you, or not the phone call, the body cam footage, the audio that we heard. And I'm going to share some of those with you guys right now. But here's what we learned today also, that Aaron was not the only target she had. All right, let me repeat that. Aaron was not the only target she had. There were other people who she wanted out of the picture. Now, those names have not been released, but from my source, what I understand is they are pretty prominent figures in the Tennessee community, very likely government. Okay, like high up in the Tennessee government. That is what I am understanding at this point in time. And I truly, truly, so far, everything that my source on this has shared with me has been dead on accurate. So that is what I believe. This source has not been able to give me names yet, but once we have them, of course, I will let you know. So there were three people that was involved. She told the hitman that she did not have the money to pay him the $5,000 that he needed, basically as a deposit. So she offered her vehicle, like the title to her vehicle, basically as collateral. Basically said that once Aaron was out of the picture, her daughter Gracie would be entitled to a trust fund worth millions, and then they would then have the money, the access to money, to pay this guy the remainder of the amount that they. In fact, she offered to pay him double. So that's kind of what you have on the audio tape. That's really kind of interesting. The other thing that I'll tell you about is the bail hearing. So she was being held on $500,000, bond hearing. Sorry, and they reduced that today to half of that. So it's now 250,000, meaning that she needs 25,000 to get out. If she gets out, she will go on house arrest. She will not be allowed to leave her house except for the minimum things. She will not be allowed a phone. She will not be allowed the internet. It will be just house arrest while she awaits trial. I also know that Aaron Solomon was at the courthouse today for this hearing as well. So that's kind of the biggest updates on the things that happened today with this. But here's where, and I'm just going to come from curious, okay, on this. And I'm going to share something with you guys that I haven't really shared before, but I shared it today on Law and Crime, so it's going to come out anyways. And basically, how do I want to put this? Angie, as a content creator who covered this from the very beginning, I worked very closely with Angie. All right. And I'm just gonna share it to you. This is from a curious. I'm gonna tell you that a lot of this is alleged, a lot of it is hearsay. All right, which is why I've never spoken publicly about this. Okay, only privately to people and that I know in my circle, whatever. So Angie did not have the 5,000 to give to this guy. When we were all raising money for her GoFundMe's, my understanding is that number topped between 160 and $200,000, and that money was supposed to be used to purchase a forensic expert, analysis investigators, in order to help recreate the scene of Grant's crash, to investigate his death, to help hire attorneys for Gracie, and to exhume Grant's body. And to my understanding, none of this has happened. All right. And so, all of that being said, when this was going down originally, I was in Angie's corner and Gracie's corner, 100% full support, gung ho. Let's go. Let's take Aaron Solomon down. Let's do it. Knock it out. And then she just started ghosting me. Not just me, but pretty much every other creator that was working with her at that particular time. No real reason. And I even said to her, and I have the text messages to prove this, but I even said to her, I was like, I want to keep helping you. I would like to get an update on what's going on so I can let my followers know. I can't keep asking them to donate to your GoFundMe unless we have, they want to know updates. They want to make sure that there's progress going on, right? We want to make sure that progress is going on. We want to make sure that things are going in the right step. They want to make sure that my followers are amazing. They want to make sure that they put all that information out there to make sure that Aaron is held accountable, to make sure that Grant and Gracie, justice is achieved. That's what's important. Nothing. About 3-4 weeks later, I said, hey, did I do something to make you mad? I haven't heard back from you. I want to help. I want to continue to be part of this. Nothing. There's another individual who I've become very close with, good friends with, who I'm not going to mention his name because it's not my place to do so, who was running socials, helping to get interviews for Angie with people like Nancy Grace and Ashley Banfield and true crime junkies. I think she did something with them and a multitude of other podcasters. All right. And she just one day turned on him, kicked him out. And this happened with a lot of other creators. And here's what I'm going to share with you. Okay. I had heard, and I want to make this very clear as you guys are listening to this. I want to make this very clear. Okay. There are a few things I'm going to say before I go to that part. Number one, first thing I want to say is that Grant's death is very suspicious. I wholeheartedly believe that there is more to the story that we don't know, and there needs to be a real investigation. The allegations that Gracie has put out. I will never deny a victim, and I have no reason to believe that Gracie is not telling the truth. All right. Gracie is a sweet, nice kid who I think has been through a lot of trauma. So I'm not denying any stories. And I don't think that Angie was involved in Grant's demise or anything that happened to Gracie. All right. I want to make that very clear. Now, the next thing that I want to make very clear is that what I'm going to share with you now is hearsay. All right. Conversations that I had with somebody that got back to Angie, a private person, a one-on-one conversation. So I know who said it. Somebody that I know had asked me when I was covering this case about this case. It had been like several months after. All right. And I had heard that the GoFundMe was used to purchase a vehicle for Gracie, and then eventually one for Angie. That's what I heard. All right. And so I never mentioned that publicly because, again, it's hearsay. I can't prove that that was it. And you know what? At the end of the day, you donate to a GoFundMe. You hope that people use it for what they're saying they're going to use it for. And if they don't use it for what they're going for, um, that's you still donated the money for whatever reason. Gracie needed a car. Angie, believe me, I saw Angie's old car. Angie needed a car. Trust me. But I believe that that's what the money was used for. And so I mentioned that to somebody, and they told that to Angie. And guess who finally texted me back almost a year later and went on just an absolute tangent about me having that conversation. I even said to her, I was like, look, Angie, and maybe one day when we get further on this, I will show you guys the texts. Okay. I will show them to you. I will screenshot them, put them up there completely unedited. And I said to her, it's very strange that you just kind of dropped off the face of the earth. I said, this is what I heard. I said, I never said anything publicly about this. I stopped talking about the case altogether because there was no information for me to continue with. There was nothing else for me to say. I spoke about it privately because somebody asked, like a face-to-face conversation. And eventually I just stopped responding to her, and she kept going and going and going. She was very angry, and her reaction to me indicates that what was accused is probably accurate. Again, not my place, not my business, don't care. She did what she did. I donated money to that GoFundMe and to her. It is what it is, right? It is what it is. But my point to all of this is that it's a very suspicious story. What happened to Grant, what happened to Gracie, there needs to be accountability. There needs to be justice 100%. All right. What I also find odd is that Aaron has denied these accusations against him from Gracie, from Angie, in regard to their son's death, has denied those allegations through his attorney. Aaron Solomon has never once, not once, said a word, not publicly. Now, when I make posts about this, specifically on Instagram about the Solomons, typically speaking, his sister Courtney and some other family members come in and start chiming in, usually very belligerent, very just being jerks about it. And I got into it with her on one of the last posts that I did when like all this stuff broke when she was first arrested. And I said, why don't you come on? I said, why don't you come onto my platform, Courtney? I'll talk to you. She doesn't want to talk to me. She doesn't trust me. Fine. Don't trust me. Fine. I can give you Ashley Banfield's number. She would love to talk to you. I can give you the number for people at Law and Crime. They would love to talk to you. Don't talk to me. You want to talk to another creator? I'll give you that access because I'm obviously mutual to a lot of these people. You don't have to talk to me. But if Aaron's saying that he's innocent, then let him get his story out here. If you're fighting the battles on Aaron's behalf because you say he's innocent, then go out there and publicly say it. But they don't. And what I find very strange about the whole thing is that you have accusations being levied against you that you SA'd your daughter from the time that she was 2 years old, and you took the life of your own son, and you don't publicly say anything. Even JP Miller went public to deny accusations against him. And this man just says absolutely nothing. He's completely quiet. Angie went on every podcast, had every influencer in her corner, went on Nancy Grace, went on Ashley Banfield. She might have even gone on Law and Crime at one point. Major podcasts, big podcasts. She went on everywhere to anyone who would listen to her story. And Aaron Solomon has not said a single word. And it gets to a point where you're well past, maybe my lawyer told me not to do this. when you have accusations like this levied against you, if you are innocent, you need to be denying it. You need to be denying it publicly and vehemently. And Aaron has not done that. It has not done that. It is incredibly strange. So, all of that said, that is the latest with Angie Solomon. This case is going to be big, y'all. It is going to be big the more that comes out. Personally speaking, just call it a hunch. Call it a hunch. Okay? I have a feeling, kind of like with Diddy, and this is not federal, obviously. This is state, local, TBI. This is not federal. That they're probably working on additional charges. That's my guess. Just an educated guess from covering cases like this for a long time. I could be wrong. I could be right. We'll find out. My point is, though, that Angie Solomon, Gracie Solomon, Grant Solomon, Aaron Solomon, all of them, the truth is out there. I don't know what it is. I can tell you that between Gracie and Grant, the two kids involved in this, Grant is no longer here to tell his side of the story, and Gracie still is. Support them. Don't be mad at them. They are both victims. No matter how this plays out, they are both victims, 100%. And I have met Gracie. I have interviewed Gracie. She is a sweet kid. She's a good kid, smart kid. So we'll find out. Stay tuned. Hit the follow for that one. And like I said before, at the beginning of this, in case you forgot, if you're watching this now, watching this later, if you want me to go through and do a whole separate thing where we get really into the weeds on Angie, Gracie, and Grant, and Aaron, and we play the call that happened today, not the call, what the hell? The footage from the Hitman in the car, the vehicle, the audio, and we break that down. Let me know. It's about 45. It's about 45 minutes or so of her talking, and him talking and exchanging information, things like that. So we can do that and break all that down. But let me know. Drop that in the comments. Tell me what you guys want to do. We would, of course, have to do that on YouTube. So if you're watching this on TikTok, where we got 540 people in here, please hit that. Please walk over to YouTube and turn your notifications on. Make sure it's there. Now, here's the next thing I want to talk about. I'm going to switch gears, completely switch gears for a moment and talk about something else, because I've had people ask me about this, and it's kind of a big deal. You guys know that I rarely get into politics. I'm not a political creator. I try to stay with my content very center of the road. I do have my opinions. I do have my theories. There are stories I will report, whether it's on a Republican side or a Democrat side. It doesn't really matter. This one, fortunately, is neither. For me. A lot of people want to ask you about the Canadian. And by the way, after I finish this, because I know some of y'all are already like, I'm leaving. It's a Canadian election. I don't want to stay here for this. After this, we're going to talk about Diddy's downward spiral, because stuff with Diddy, we are a week away from Diddy's trial, y'all. We are a week away from Diddy's trial. And he is spiraling, y'all. Spiraling. And we're going to talk about that after I talk about this really quick. Really quick. So yesterday was Canada's election, and this was something that as Americans, a lot of Americans have been watching closely, because what happened in Canada yesterday could very much impact U.S.-Canada relations, trade relations, tariffs, things like that are going on. And what ultimately happened was Pierre Poilievre, who was the conservative leader, and remember, Canada's not a two-party system; they're a multi-party system. Pierre Poilievre was poised a few months ago, like in January, February, March, to be the next leader of Canada, to be the next prime minister of Canada. All right. And what ended up happening was the Liberal Party, which is led by Mark Carney, won. The seats that were projected that were won were 168 out of 343, which is a strong minority government, what it's called. But what's really interesting is not only did the conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, not win, he also lost his own seat. On top of that, the voter turnout in Canada was at historic levels. Over 7.3 million people early voted, which might not seem a lot to the U.S., but to them it is. Now, to give you a little bit about Carney, he is a respected economist, former central banker, stepped into leadership earlier this year when Justin Trudeau stepped down. He called a snap election, framing it as a vote on stability, economic independence, and Canada's role on the world stage. Now, part of what's going on with this, part of the big things that Canadians voted on were, one, tariffs. The new U.S. tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum reignited some economic tensions. There was also some political rhetoric. comments from President Trump, including him talking about Canada becoming the 51st state, gained widespread, vast media attention in Canada and fueled a nationalist kind of sentiment across Canada. On top of that, many Canadian voters saw this election as a way to reaffirm their country's sovereignty and economic independence. And what this basically means is that they're worried about somebody coming in with strong conservative ties, tying to President Trump, and causing, as their words, not mine, causing damage to their country. Okay, that's basically what it's doing. Now, here's what this says. Okay, and just so you know, U.S. despite the tariff situation, the trade war that's going on, U.S.-Canadian ties still remain very, very strong. And this election showed that Canadians are a little bit wary of over-reliance on the U.S., especially when it's coming into trade. So what they're doing, what Canada's doing, what a lot of countries are doing, as a matter of fact, is that they're going to take a more assertive approach with things like trade diversification. They're expanding partnerships with Europe and the Indo-Pacific region and China to reduce their dependency on the U.S. market. Basically, that's already started. We're like, we don't need the U.S. goods. We don't need the U.S. markets. We can get them from other places in Europe and start having trade partnerships there. They've also started on, of course, the counter tariffs, which is maintaining existing retaliatory tariffs. And basically, that's a signal that Canada is going to defend its industries. Then there's also the defense strategy that they're being aggressive on or assertive on, which is a likely review of their military and foreign policy with a little bit more emphasis on Canada's independent security interests. So now, again, the U.S.-Canadian alliance is critical. It is incredibly important. There are neighbors to our north. We rely on them. They rely on us, despite what people might tell you. That is the bottom line. Both countries do rely on each other for a lot of reasons. But instead of being an automatic alignment, the shift might move more towards a business-like relationship versus what we've had before. And this election also does have some wider global implications, things like accelerated trade deals with the EU, countries like Japan, South Korea, Asia. There's also a little bit of geopolitical posture. Things like Canada's election could possibly inspire other mid-sized powers to rethink reliance on anything single country, including the U.S. And then there's also democracy and sovereignty. This election was supposed to highlight how democratic countries respond when feeling external pressure. And it could basically be setting the stage for what other countries do as their elections come up. So here's my questions for you guys. This is just, again, this is the news from Canada being reported as the news from Canada without my personal opinions in it. Okay. But here's what I'm going to ask you, because I want y'all's personal opinions. I always love y'all's personal opinions. So drop it in the comments. Well, again, this specifically more for YouTube if you're watching it later, now, whatever. But do you think that U.S.-Canadian relations are heading towards a rough patch and what that's going to look like in the future? And should the U.S. be concerned about allies like Canada seeking new partnerships and what that could do? So would love to know y'all's thoughts on it. This is a very convoluted issue. I know there's a lot of emotion, a lot of thoughts, a lot of opinions around anything, any political sentiment, but would love to know what you guys think. Just kind of, if you don't mind, keep it respectful, in the comments. That would be all I ask. So now let's talk about Diddy. Let's talk about Diddy, because he is going through a downward spot. Get this closer. A downward spiral, y'all. A downward spiral. So let's just jump right into the mental defense. Okay. So Diddy's lawyers are arguing, right, that due to his long-term substance usage, that he might, quote, not have been mentally capable, end quote, of forming criminal intent when the alleged crimes happen. Let me repeat that. His lawyers are arguing that he may not have been mentally capable of forming criminal intent with the alleged crime when the alleged crimes happen. Here's what I find very interesting about that statement, because that statement goes away from a denial of these claims and says, well, we're not denying the claims, but we're just saying that he might not have been mentally capable of forming them. And I find that really interesting. I find that a very interesting statement. All right. So, I mean, obviously what you can see, though, what they're doing here, right? They're setting up for a potential mental health defense, trying to claim that impaired judgment and behavior is a result of his substance abuse. All right. Now, despite all these claims, Diddy, of course, as you know, has pled not guilty to all these charges and remains jailed after multiple bail denials. And his trial is locked in for May 5th. In a federal court. And I know people have been asking, will this trial be televised? And the answer is no. Federal trials are never televised. Never televised. But let's talk about this a little bit more before we go on to the next section of this. All right. This is stuff that you have people when you look at the civil cases, which don't bleed in for the most, with few exceptions, the civil cases don't bleed into this federal case that he is facing in New York. Civil cases are just that. They're civil. There's no jail time that comes from civil cases unless something is uncovered that they can then go after. And at this point in time, that has not occurred. All right. Civil cases are money grabs, and that's not a bad thing. If somebody wronged you, a money grab is okay. That's a way to punish them, to be punitive about it, and get some compensation for what you went through. There is nothing wrong with that at all. All right. But you have accusations going back to the mid and even early, in one or two cases, 90s. All right. That's far beyond like impaired judgment once or twice because of substances. This is stuff that's gone on for 30 some odd years. Right? 30 something years. This stuff has gone on. I feel like it's a bold move to try to take this approach. Now, his attorneys, look, when you talk about a dream team of attorneys, you can't get much better than what he has. His attorneys are phenomenal. And mind you, if you guys didn't hear this, he also was offered a plea deal. I don't know the details of the plea deal. He was offered a plea deal and he turned it down. He turned it down. All right. Let me share something with you that I shared at the very beginning when Diddy first got arrested. When you are arrested on federal charges, the government has done their due diligence. They have like a 95 or 96, 97% conviction rate, something like that, something very, very high. You couple that with the fact that these indictments came out of the Southern District of New York, who has a 98% conviction rate. Dude is cooked, y'all. Dude is cooked. That means they have what they need. All right. Now, there's a few other things that you guys need to know that this is going on. Now, first, let's talk about gag orders for just a quick moment here. So his legal team is also asking the judge for a gag order to prevent alleged victims and witnesses from speaking publicly before trial. Honestly, for a fair trial, I don't think that's an unreasonable request. I know that we don't like Diddy. I know that we have opinions, but things have to be done correctly. Otherwise, he could get a mistrial or win an appeal. That's what you don't want to do. So I agree with that one. They also claim that media attention could taint the jury pool and damage Diddy's right to a fair trial. That's a little hard because he is a public figure. But you know what? That's what happens with public figures. And you know what? Johnny Depp and Amber Heard still got their fair trial. Now, at this moment in time, as we record this on April 29th, there has been no final decision from the judge. So we are still waiting for that, which means the judge is probably considering it. And we're talking about a week away. So, you know, it's very possible that he'll just be like, yeah, we'll do this, or no, it's too late. We're already there. So, I mean, I guess it's either way. That was not a helpful speculation. Okay. But now let's talk about some additional defense strategy. Okay. Because outside of he might not have been mentally capable to have criminal intent with this, they are also arguing that his lifestyle included consensual group activities like partner swapping, swinging, basically, and that these practices aren't criminal. And you know what? If it is consensual, then it's not criminal. The issue is, and what's being argued, is that this wasn't consensual. So they are painting it as a consensual lifestyle choice that is prevalent and accepted by many. But you know what? Prosecutors aren't taking it. They're hitting back pretty hard, saying that the actual accusations against Diddy involved non-consensual acts, which is where it becomes illegal, which is where coercion comes in, which is where trafficking and violence comes in. And don't tell me, if you saw that Cassie video like I did, that was not that man's first time doing what he did to her. That was somebody that was far too comfortable with what he did. Far too comfortable with what he did. Right? Anyways, that strategy surfaced right after he refused a plea deal and failed to delay the trial. So now let's talk about a couple things that you guys need to know because there might be another attorney joining the team. It is rumored that Diddy is trying to hire um, Joe Takapina. I think I'm saying that right. He is famous and very, very expensive. Very expensive. He's a defense attorney, obviously. He's represented Donald Trump. He's represented Meek Mill. Some reports also claim that he might be, Takapina might actually be helping Jay-Z distance himself from Diddy, allegedly helping Jay-Z protect his own name as Diddy goes down. Allegations are also swearing that Diddy's current legal team, which is now includes Mark Garagos. Mark Garagos is very interesting, and I'm going to circle back to that in a moment. Might have used intimidation tactics against victims through a convicted PI, Anthony Pellicano. Now, here's what I want to share with you. Let me tell you how expensive Tucapina is. Okay, Diddy's team is already very, very, very expensive, right? I don't even know the hourly rate he must be paying for the ones that he has because he has the best of the best of the best of the best attorneys, and he can afford it. This dude is $2,400 an hour. $2,400 an hour. All right, insane. And there's going to be a lot of hours in this case, y'all. A lot of hours. Now, I'm going to circle back to Mark real quick. If you guys don't know who Mark Garagos is, I'm hoping that we're going to be able to sit down with him in June regarding Menendez stuff because he is representing the Menendez brothers. He also represented OJ. He represented he's represented so many. I'm having a moment. He's represented a lot of very well known, very famous people. But he's currently got a couple big ones going on right now. I'm just having a brain moment. I don't want to sit here and try to think about it. So, yeah, Scott Peterson. Thank you. That was another one. So that one's interesting. So again, he's got like the dream team of attorneys. He must be spending, God, like 15 grand an hour on these attorneys, at least. At least. Now, there's also a battle over evidence. They want to exclude evidence. Diddy's lawyers are filing motions to block certain pieces of what they're describing as powerful, what's being described as powerful evidence from being presented at trial. They tried to block mention of forced labor allegations just altogether and ongoing investigations that were not presented to the grand jury. The prosecutors have responded to that, saying Diddy's team is basically trying to narrow the scope to delay the inevitable. Basically, by trying to do this blocking, they're trying to delay the trial, is kind of what it's saying. Now, what I can tell you too about some of this additional stuff, 1 week, or again, we're 1 week, this just happened. 1 week before the trial, the judge rejected Diddy's motion to exclude these critical evidence. The judge allowed prosecutors to bring evidence about Diddy's alleged freak-off parties where this alleged trafficking coercion happened. However, forced labor allegations from a former employee were excluded for procedural reasons. However, where did I lost my place? In my notes here. My bullet point. Oh, it doesn't matter. Anyways, Diddy's team argued that a last minute evidence dump would prejudice the jury, but the judge basically said that they had enough notice. So that was not a win for Diddy. That was a pretty big loss for him. Bottom line, guys, there's major damaging evidence that is now officially allowed in trial, and we are a week away. So here's what I can say in short of this whole thing. Diddy is staring down a federal trial with the deck stacked against him. Rejected plea deals, mounting evidence, high profile attorneys maneuvering behind the scenes, and desperate last ditch defenses. In this trial, guys, it's going to be just the beginning. The stakes could not be higher for him because for him, the entire industry and maybe some even bigger names that we haven't heard implicated might be involved. We haven't heard them yet. So that's what I have on this. Now, typically speaking, when we get to this point, I sign off, but I'm noticing some comments here in my YouTube. And we're going to have a conversation with somebody. We're going to put their comment up here and we're going to have a conversation with them. about something. All right. You are on TikTok. You're not going to know what I'm talking about. But Lily here, who's made a lot of comments, doesn't have her listening ears on. Because had she had her listening ears on and she went back to the beginning of this stream, what she would have heard is the same thing that I told you guys at the beginning of this stream, which is the fact that when a major event happens and news is coming out quickly, sometimes information is not correct. It is correct at that particular time. And when things change, we update that. That has always been how it is. Whether it's a plane crash, a mass shooting, school shooting, I guess it's technically a mass shooting, or a car crash. All right. And when information changes, it doesn't mean that that information previously was wrong. It just means that it was updated with new information. And so what she's talking about specifically is the very first story that we had here. All right. I see that Lily's pretty quiet right now talking to her. I don't know if she's left or not. But she's got it with her full chest though. Her whole name, first and last name are up here. All right. But things change. When a plane crashes, you might hear 5 people were killed in the plane crash, and then come to find out there were only 4 people on the plane and 1 lived. You go with the information that you have. The challenge is that we have a 24-hour news cycle, and you don't have a full day for things to get updated. So you try to get the information out to people as quickly as you possibly can, with the understanding that as things update, we will update that information. And I have never been shy about that. Okay. The other thing that I'm going to say is her comment, for those of y'all on TikTok who can't read it, says he's earning money on false information where children were killed. I can say what I'm saying. LOL. First of all, talking about children being killed and putting LOL in your sentence is really kind of effed up. All right. And as we talk about this whole situation, yes, I am a monetized creator. Every platform I'm on, I'm monetized. This is my full-time job. I'm a digital journalist. That is my full-time job. So yes, I get paid for it. I don't ask my followers for money. I don't ask my followers for super chats. I don't ask my followers for gifts. Nothing. If people want to do that, great. Awesome. I'm happy for it. I will accept. But I don't ask for it. So when we're talking about this story, and as she's saying here, she says, my entire point is that no news source said that, and that she was intoxicated. No one said that besides the people speculating. That information, which was said in that video, said that it came from people that were local, that it was not confirmed, or it was to some degree of that. All right. And this is a person who was then handcuffed. And there are plenty of articles that say she was under arrest, by the way. Plenty of them. But she was handcuffed, kept on the scene for an hour, hour and a half. And that doesn't sound like a medical emergency. Now, what we're hearing today is that it was very likely a medical emergency, and toxicology is coming back. We also heard from people from the community that this person is known to drink. I was actually shared screenshots where she's drunk Facebooking. Now, it doesn't really matter if you are at home Facebooking and you're inebriated. We've all been there, right? I mean, maybe not all of us. I don't really drink a lot, but some of us have been there. My point is to all of this is that this information changes. I never purposely put out false information for views. And if information is truly false and I'm well off, I will typically correct it. And when it's stories like this, I will always give the updated information when I'm covering it. It's not like I'm going to be like, this is my last video, I'm not covering it anymore. Now, when this particular story, what really makes me angry about this, which is why I'm calling Lily out and having this whole TED talk with everyone on it, is because the hardest stories for me to cover are the ones that have kids. All right. They are the hardest stories for me to cover. I can compartmentalize in my head the adults and be like, this sucks. It's tragic. Kids, I cannot. I get emotional. I get teary-eyed. I get worked up. I get choked up. I have a 5, almost 6-year-old. These kids were like my daughter's age. And the thought of me having, I put myself in those shoes of having my child never come home again is just something that I can't even begin to put myself into that shoes. It is something that when I talk about those things, I don't talk about them um, just arbitrarily. I put my heart and soul into it because I am a parent and it sucks. And kids should not have to go through that. And what happened to these kids is absolutely tragic. 4 kids lost their lives. And because I consider 18 still a kid, 4 kids lost their lives. Two, 2 7-year-olds, an 8-year-old, and an 18-year-old. Another kid is fighting for their life, and 5 other kids were injured. All right. So that is why I will always defend myself on that. And that's what I have to say. I'm gonna take this comment down now. She keeps going. So let's give her the last thing. There was no correction, except from this live stream that 78 people are on. Not even a comment on the video explaining the change I'm wondering about. Well, there's 600 people in the TikTok live watching this right now, in addition to the 78 people here, and the probably couple thousand people who will at least watch this on YouTube. On top of that, I haven't had a chance to make the latest update video yet, Lily. I'm sorry I'm not on your time schedule because I had to prepare this show. For me to prepare a YouTube show takes time to get photos and to get the accurate information. If you take issue with my comment, then leave my page. If you take, or with my content, you take issue with my content, leave my page. You do not have to listen to me. I do not need you as a follower. If you assuming you even do, you're welcome to leave. Sorry, TikTok's giving me a thing. Anyways, that's what I got. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna get off the horse. Lily gets no more attention. She can leave. So what I'm gonna do here is this. This is I'm gonna try to, like I said, give you guys on TikTok. Don't go anywhere because I'm gonna be right there in 2 seconds. And talk directly to you guys. I'm gonna talk and I'll answer all your questions if you missed it. If you are on TikTok and want to see this entire thing that we did, you can jump over to YouTube. It is there. It is saved. All right. You can go watch the whole thing. The accident started at the very beginning. Like I said, I'm going to try to commit to you guys going live on YouTube at least 3 times a week and being consistent about it, probably around this time. And TikTok, I'm going to try to do the same for you guys as well. Go live outside of these shows so you guys have specific attention. With everybody else, if you are watching this for the first time, please consider hitting that follow. I am on the for YouTube. I am on the road to 50,000. I'm at 42,000 as we stand today, and would love you guys to hit the subscribe button. Subscribing is free. It's the same as the follow on any other platform. And thank you guys for listening today. A lot of big topics. We got a lot of things coming up. I'll see you guys soon. Bye, everyone.